When my husband died, my sister moved in to help me heal. She cooked, cleaned, held me when I cried. I thought she was my angel, until the night I walked into her room and saw her wearing his ring, the same ring I buried him with. When my husband died, the world didn't stop like I thought it would. I used to believe that grief was loud, full of wailing and storming skies and broken plates. But when he was gone, everything just went silent. The house stayed still. The clock on the wall kept ticking, even when I wanted it to stop. I remember standing at the kitchen sink, looking out the window at the empty driveway, and realizing he would never drive up again. It was that kind of silence, not peaceful, but suffocating. People tried to help. They sent flowers, casseroles, cards. They said things like, "He's in a better place," or "Time will heal you." But time didn't heal anything. It just stretched out, long and hollow, like a hallway I didn't want to walk down. The nights were the worst. I'd wake up thinking I heard him breathing beside me, only to turn and see the empty pillow. Sometimes I'd whisper his name in the dark, just to remind myself it once belonged to someone. A few weeks after the funeral, my sister Lily started visiting more often. She lived 2 towns over and had always been the kind of woman who took control of things. Organized, practical, calm under pressure. She helped me plan the service, made sure I ate, took the phone calls I couldn't bear to answer. She said, "You shouldn't be alone right now." And she was right. I wasn't ready to face the empty house. So when she offered to move in, just for a little while, I didn't argue. I told myself it would be temporary. She'd stay until I could breathe again, until I could sleep without seeing him in every corner. She brought her things. A few boxes, her favorite blanket, her books. She moved into the guest room down the hall, and the house didn't feel so hollow anymore. At first I was grateful. She made coffee in the mornings, opened the curtains, filled the silence with gentle conversation. She even laughed sometimes, and though I couldn't join her, it reminded me that life was still happening somewhere. She told me stories from work, gossip about her friends, updates about our cousins. It was easy to let her take the lead. I was too tired to think. There were moments that felt almost normal. She'd cook dinner and pour me a glass of wine, saying, "You need to eat something." And I'd sit there watching her move around the kitchen with ease. She was so alive, so composed. It made me wonder how she did it. How she kept going when I was falling apart. I started to rely on her more than I meant to. She handled bills I'd forgotten to pay, picked up groceries, even cleaned out the garage where my husband's tools still sat untouched. Once, I found her sitting in there on a Saturday morning, holding his wrench set. When she saw me, she smiled faintly and said, "You should donate these, you know. You can't keep living in a museum." The way she said it, not cruel but firm, stung a little. But I nodded. Maybe she was right. Maybe I needed someone to push me forward. Weeks turned into months, and the rhythm of our new life settled in. She worked from home now, said she liked being close to me. I didn't question it. I was just grateful for her presence. She'd hum while making breakfast, water the plants he used to forget about, and sometimes, when she thought I wasn't listening, I'd hear her talking softly in his study. The one room I still couldn't enter. It was strange, but I didn't ask. Maybe she was just keeping me company in her own way. Maybe she missed him too. After all, they'd always gotten along well. Too well, maybe. One night I couldn't sleep. The house felt heavy again, full of memories pressing against the walls. I got up to make tea, padding down the hallway barefoot. I passed Lily's door. It was open just a crack. The light from her bedside lamp spilled into the hall. I saw her sitting on the edge of her bed, looking down at something in her hand. She didn't notice me standing there. Her shoulders were trembling slightly, and for a moment I thought she was crying. I almost went in, almost asked if she was okay. But something in me hesitated. I backed away quietly and returned to my room. Later, lying awake, I told myself she was grieving too. Maybe we both were just lost in different ways. I wanted to believe that. In those quiet weeks, I started to feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. Safety. The kind that comes when someone else is strong for you. When you don't have to make every decision or carry every memory alone. Lily was my lifeline, the anchor in a sea that wanted to pull me under. But grief has a way of blinding you. It lets you believe that comfort is kindness, that familiarity means love, and sometimes the people who help you stand are the same ones who quietly take your place. I didn't see it coming. Not the whispers, not the missing photographs. Not the small, careful ways she began to rewrite the story of who he was and who we were. But I would. And when I did, the silence that followed was louder than any grief I'd ever known. The weeks after that night blurred together. There were mornings when the sunlight felt warmer, when I caught myself humming without realizing it. Lily's presence made the house feel alive again, and I told myself that was enough, that it was okay to let her fill the spaces I couldn't. But somewhere along the way, small things began to change. It started with the photographs. One afternoon, I noticed that the framed picture of my husband on the living room shelf was missing. It had been one of my favorites. The one from our anniversary trip to the coast, his smile soft and genuine, a little sunburned, holding a glass of wine. I searched the shelves, the mantel, the end tables, but it wasn't there. When I asked Lily, she blinked innocently and said, "Oh, I think I moved it when I dusted. It's probably in the study." The study. I hadn't been inside that room since the day he died. I didn't question her. I just nodded, even though something inside me tugged at the thought. A few days later, I found that she'd rearranged the books in his office. His old armchair had been moved closer to the window, the one he used to sit in every evening to read, and draped over the back of it was a blanket that wasn't his, Lily's. She'd even lit a candle on his desk, the scent of sandalwood filling the air. She turned to me and smiled. "It's such a peaceful space. I hope you don't mind. I like to read in here sometimes. It feels comforting." Comforting. That word stayed with me. There was something intimate about the way she said it, something almost possessive in the way she touched the edge of his desk, as if she was claiming the quiet he'd left behind. I wanted to say something. Anything. But I stopped myself. Maybe I was being unkind. Maybe I was still too raw, too fragile to share the things that once belonged to him. After that, she started wearing his sweaters. She said it was because they were soft and warm. The first time I saw her in one, it caught me off guard. It was that old gray cardigan he used to wear on Sundays, the one that still smelled faintly of his cologne. It looked strange on her, oversized, the sleeves covering her hands. She noticed my stare and laughed it off. "You don't mind, do you? It's just so cozy." I told her no. But my voice didn't sound like mine anymore. The small changes kept coming, subtle, careful, disguised as care. She started sitting in his chair at the dining table. She played his favorite records while cooking. She even made his coffee the way he liked it. Black, no sugar. Though she never drank it that way before, every corner of the house began to shift until it felt less like ours and more like hers. One morning I came downstairs and found her in the kitchen, wearing one of his shirts. She was humming softly, her back to me, and for a second, just a second, my heart jumped. From behind, in that light with her hair falling just so, she almost looked like him. I froze in the doorway, my breath caught in my chest. Then she turned, smiling, and the illusion shattered. "Good morning," she said cheerfully, as if nothing was wrong. I wanted to ask why she was wearing his things, why the house smelled like his cologne again, why she'd moved his belongings from the closet to the drawers in the guest room. But every time I tried, the words got stuck. She was helping me, after all. She'd taken care of me when I couldn't take care of myself, and what kind of sister questions kindness? Still, there were moments when I caught her watching me. Not in pity, but with something I couldn't name. Something sharper. Once, during dinner, I mentioned how hard it was sleeping alone, how the bed still felt too big. She set down her fork and said softly, "He wouldn't want you to stay alone forever." There was a strange note in her voice, sympathy mixed with something else. "Maybe," I replied, unsure where to look. She smiled faintly. "He had a kind heart. I think he'd want you to be happy, no matter what that means." The way she said it made my stomach twist. That night, I dreamed of her sitting in his chair again, the firelight flickering on her face, her hand resting where his once did. When I woke, I couldn't shake the image. A few days later, I went into the study while she was out. I told myself it was time to face the space, to reclaim something that was mine. But really, I just needed to feel close to him again. The candle was still on his desk. Beside it was a small photo frame. My breath caught when I saw it. It was that same anniversary picture I thought had gone missing. Only now the frame was new, the old one replaced. And the photo, it had been cropped. It was just him now. My half of the picture was gone. For a long time, I just stood there, holding the frame and shaking hands. The silence in the room felt heavier than ever, pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't move. When Lily came home, I didn't mention it. I couldn't. But I started to see everything differently after that. The way she moved through the house. The way she spoke about him. The way she said his name. Softly, like it was hers to say now. Grief makes you see ghosts. But sometimes what you're seeing isn't a ghost at all. Sometimes it's someone living, someone you trusted, wearing the shape of the person you lost. And soon, I'd see just how far she'd gone to become him. The air in the house started to feel different. Still heavy, like the walls were holding their breath. I told myself I was imagining things, that grief had made me paranoid, but every time I walked past his study, or caught the faint scent of his aftershave, I felt like something unseen was watching me from the corners. Lily said I was getting better. "You look stronger," she'd tell me, smiling. "You're finally healing." But I didn't feel healed. I felt hollow, like a ghost walking through my own home. Then came the day everything changed. It was a Tuesday. I remember because the light was strange. Gray and cold, even though it was spring. Lily had gone out early to run errands. I was folding laundry in the bedroom when I found something that made my breath stop. It was his shirt, not unusual. I still hadn't been able to get rid of most of his clothes. But this one had lipstick on the collar, not mine. Not from before he died. Fresh, faint pink, smudged just beneath the button. For a moment I couldn't move. I just stared at it, the fabric trembling in my hands. I searched for explanations. Maybe I'd missed it before, maybe it was old. But no, the scent on it wasn't his cologne. It was hers. That same soft floral perfume she wore every day. I dropped the shirt back into the basket like it burned. When Lily came home later, humming as she hung her keys, I watched her closely. She smiled like always, set down her bag, and went to the kitchen to make tea. I wanted to ask her. I wanted to shout, to demand answers. But I didn't. Not yet. I needed to be sure. That night, I pretended to go to bed early. I waited until the house went quiet, until I heard her door close down the hall. Then I got up. The floorboards creaked beneath my feet as I made my way toward her room. The light under her door was still on. I pushed it open just a little. Enough to see her sitting at her vanity, brushing her hair. She was wearing one of his shirts again, her shoulders bare beneath the fabric. My stomach turned. Then she reached for something on the table. Something small, glinting in the light. I leaned closer, and that's when I saw it. His ring, the wedding band I'd kept in my jewelry box since the day the coroner handed it to me. The one he'd worn every single day of our marriage. She slid it onto her finger slowly, almost tenderly, as if she'd done it before. She stared at it for a long moment, smiling faintly, a smile I didn't recognize, soft and private. Something inside me cracked. I must have made a sound because she froze. Her eyes met mine in the mirror. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she turned calm, composed, as if she'd been expecting me. "Why are you awake?" she asked quietly. I stepped into the room. My voice shook. "That's his ring." She looked down at her hand, then back at me. "Yes," she said simply. "Why do you have it?" "I found it," she replied. "In your drawer. You weren't wearing it anymore." I thought it shouldn't just sit there. I stared at her, disbelief choking me. It was his. I know. The calm in her voice made my blood run cold. "Take it off," I whispered. She didn't move. "You're overreacting," she said softly. "You don't understand. You're clinging to something that's already gone." "Gone?" My voice cracked. He was my husband. Her eyes softened, with pity or maybe something darker. He was mine too, in a way. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "What did you just say?" She stood up slowly, the floor creaking beneath her feet. "You were too wrapped up in your perfect life to see it," she said quietly. "It came to me when you were too busy. Too cold. I was there when you weren't." Her words hit like ice water down my spine. "You're lying." She smiled, small, sad, almost gentle. "You can tell yourself that if it helps." I shook my head, stepping back. No, you wouldn't." But the look in her eyes told me everything. I stumbled out of the room, my hands shaking. The walls seemed to close in, the floor tilting beneath me. I could still see that ring on her finger, glinting under the lamplight like something sacred and cruel all at once. She didn't follow me. She didn't apologize. She didn't even try to explain. I locked myself in my room and sat on the floor, clutching the edge of the bed like it might keep me from falling apart. My mind replayed every moment. Every dinner, every soft laugh they'd shared, every time she'd touched his things like they were hers. It all made sense now. The photo. The cologne. The way she spoke about him like she knew his heart better than I did. She hadn't come here to help me heal. She'd come here to take what was left of him. And in that moment, surrounded by the echoes of two people I'd loved most, I realized the cruelest part of grief isn't losing someone to death. It's realizing they were never fully yours to begin with. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the window, staring at the sky until dawn painted the edges of the curtains with gray. The world outside moved on, cars passing, birds calling. But inside that house, everything had gone silent. When I finally stepped into the kitchen, She was already there, Lily. My sister, her hair pulled back, his ring still on her finger. She didn't look ashamed. She looked calm, peaceful even. I poured myself coffee. My hands were trembling so much the cup rattled against the saucer. We didn't speak for a long time. Finally, she said, "You weren't supposed to find out like that." I laughed, bitter and cracked. "Like there's a right way to find out your sister was sleeping with your husband." She flinched. Just barely. Then she whispered, "It wasn't like that." I slammed the cup down. "Then what was it, Lily? What could it possibly have been?" She looked at me with those wide, pleading eyes. "He was lonely. You were distant. After Mom died, you buried yourself in everything but him. He used to talk to me. Just talk, at first." My chest tightened. And then, she hesitated. Then we both crossed a line we couldn't uncross. Her voice broke on the last word. For a second, she looked small again, like my little sister, not this stranger sitting across from me. I stared at her. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to make her hurt the way she'd hurt me. But I couldn't move. I just sat there, breathing through the weight in my chest. "So what now?" I asked quietly. "You wear his ring and pretend you were the one he chose." She looked down. "I'm not pretending. He loved you, but he loved me too." The words tore something open inside me. I stood up. "Get out." She blinked, startled. "What? Get out." Her lips parted like she wanted to argue. But I was done listening. I pointed toward the door, and when she didn't move fast enough, I shouted, "Leave this house!" For a moment, I saw it, the regret, the fear, but it passed quickly, replaced by something else. Maybe shame, maybe defiance. She set her mug down, stood, and walked to the door without another word. When it closed behind her, I felt the silence rush in like a tide. I thought I'd feel relief. I didn't. I felt emptier than ever. Days turned into weeks. I cleaned every corner of that house, trying to erase them both. Her perfume, his scent, the memories stitched into the curtains and the couch. But some things don't wash away. At night, I'd still hear their voices sometimes. His laugh, her soft whisper. My mind playing cruel tricks. I stopped trying to sleep. I'd sit by the window, watching the moon rise, wondering when grief turns into madness. Then one afternoon, I went to the garden. The one he planted for me years ago. I hadn't touched it since the funeral. The flowers were overgrown, wild and tangled, like everything else in my life. As I knelt there, pulling weeds with dirt-stained hands, I found something small half buried in the soil. A photo, faded and creased. The three of us, me, him, and Lily, smiling at some family picnic long ago. His arm around both of us. For the first time, I didn't cry. I just sat there, staring at it, realizing that maybe love had always been too complicated for any of us to handle right. People think betrayal is about hate. But it isn't. It's about love. Twisted, misplaced, broken. I don't think she meant to destroy me. I don't even think he did. I think they both just wanted to feel alive in a world that had already taken too much from them. Still, that didn't make it right. It didn't bring me peace. I buried the photo back in the dirt, covered it gently, and as I stood up, I whispered to the empty garden, "You can rest now. Both of you." That night, I packed my things. I locked the house. I left without looking back. I didn't leave a note. I didn't call her. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just drove. Through the quiet roads, past the places that used to mean something. I drove until the pain felt like a shadow instead of a wound. And somewhere between one town and the next, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was just tired. Tired of loving people who broke me. Tired of searching for answers in ghosts. I found a small house by the coast. Nothing fancy. Just enough for me and the silence. I started writing letters I never sent, planting flowers I didn't name. Sometimes I even smile. But every now and then, when the wind moves just right, I can almost hear him laugh again. And I can almost see her, standing by the window, watching me with that same old smile. And for one quiet moment, I feel something close to peace. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something like it. Because the truth is, the dead don't haunt us, the living do. And sometimes, the ones who hurt us the most are the ones we loved enough to never forget.